For decades, Europe believed major war had become impossible. After two devastating world wars, European nations rebuilt themselves around one idea: peace through cooperation. Borders opened, armies shrank, trade replaced conflict. Many believed the age of war in Europe was over forever, but today that illusion is disappearing. Across the continent, governments are rearming at speeds not seen since the Cold War. Military budgets are exploding, NATO is expanding, and millions of Europeans are once again asking a question they never thought they would hear in the 21st century. Could Europe be heading toward another major war? When the Cold War ended in 1991, Europe entered a historic period of stability. The collapse of the Soviet Union removed the continent's greatest military threat. Countries cut defense spending. Some nations even reduced their armies dramatically. In Germany, military culture faded after decades of post-war caution. Across Europe, leaders focused on economic growth instead of military power. The European Union expanded, trade connected former enemies, and younger generations grew up believing war belonged to history books. But under the surface, tensions were quietly growing. The first major shock came in 2014. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. For many Europeans, it was a warning that old geopolitical rivalries had returned. But the full reality became impossible to ignore in 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Missiles struck cities, millions fled their homes, and war returned to Europe on a scale not seen in generations. The invasion shattered decades of assumptions. Suddenly, European governments feared the continent was no longer secure. Countries that once prioritized diplomacy began preparing for conflict. Defense budgets surged, weapons factories expanded production, and NATO forces increased across Eastern Europe. The transformation has been dramatic. Germany announced a massive military spending program worth billions of euros. Poland began building one of the largest armies in Europe. And historically, neutral countries like Finland and Sweden moved toward NATO membership. Europe's defense industry is now racing to produce tanks, artillery shells, drones, missile systems. At the same time, fears of cyber attacks, sabotage, and nuclear escalation continue to grow. For the first time in decades, survival planning has returned to political discussions across Europe. Some governments are even advising citizens how to prepare for emergencies and possible conflict. Europe was built on the promise that cooperation could replace war. And for decades, it worked. But history has a way of returning when people believe it is gone forever. Today, Europe stands between two futures, one defined by diplomacy and stability, the other shaped by fear, militarization, and growing confrontation. No one knows what happens next, but one thing is clear. The continent that once believed peace was permanent is preparing for war again.